As a founder and CEO, where do I start? Is this an AI thing? What data is useful? How do I know what my data is telling me? With proper processes and systems, data acquisition and analysis will allow entrepreneurs to make better informed decisions and set up their business for long-term success. In today's episode, we're going to provide you with a framework on how to best set up your business intelligence systems to acquire and structure the data you should be analyzing. Hello, and welcome back to the Nebraska Entrepreneur, the podcast for Nebraska entrepreneurs who seek candid guidance from Midwest leadership. I'm Steve Canny, and I've been a successful entrepreneur in Nebraska for over 20 years, helping and mentoring entrepreneurs and business leaders from across the country. In today's episode, we're going to show you that having the right processes and systems in place will put you on the path to success. Joining us is Julian Caldwell. Julian has vast experience as a CIO working in both large and small businesses. He is a thought leader, developing data analytics strategies and pulling together resources and technologies to execute these strategies. Thanks again, Julian, for agreeing to be on our podcast. I'm excited to talk to you about this topic. I've known you for, a few years now. Yep. We met, and I've always been intrigued by what you do and how you do it. I think you do a fantastic job, and I think I mentioned I've seen you as a thought leader in this area of using data to drive business decisions and drive strategy. And I think for a lot of entrepreneurs and business owners, they don't know where to start, right? They don't even know what it means. And I think now with the term AI jumping around out there, it's like, is this an AI thing? Well, it's not, but it can be. So maybe just give the audience here just a quick 50,000-foot overview of kind of your career and what you're doing today.
So my background is kind of interesting. I landed in technology, I argue, because I was relatively lazy. And I say that in the sense that I was given a task as a young man, I was 25, to fill out a spreadsheet every 4 hours and to distribute that spreadsheet to all the dispatchers at Union Pacific. And I was like, you gotta be kidding me. I have a college degree. I do not think this is a good use of anyone's time, much less my time. I was like, this is gonna get old fast. So I went into at the time, the director of technology, and I had no undergraduate degrees in business, not in technology at all. And I said, hey, there's gotta be a way to automate this process, right? And he looked at me and says, you're making $43,000 a year as a employee, filling out a spreadsheet. Go fill out the spreadsheet and then just let the smart stuff, basically leave the smart stuff to us and you just go do your work. So I took that as a challenge. So I went to what they used to call a bookstore, Barnes & Noble here in Omaha, Nebraska. And I went and I said, I don't know exactly what I'm looking for, but I've heard about this thing called object linking and embedding, OLE. And I just read that it was used to connect computers that may not have APIs. So surprisingly, there was 2 books in this big, section on Microsoft products, and I bought 2 books, came home and said, I'm going to read these books. And literally I read them from cover to cover. They're those old, I don't know if you remember those the old tech books were like 350 pages, but Thankfully there's lots of good pictures in them. 3 weeks later, 2.5, 3 weeks later, I had automated the process. And the same person who had told me to go back to my desk and do my job said, you are a technician. I was like, okay, does it have weekends off? Because that's something I was concerned about. Could I get to a new job that was a regular Monday through Friday of job? Because working afternoon shifts for the railroad. Says, yes, it does. And I says, I am a technician. You're exactly right. So I've always been thrown into this kind of, when black ops technology or back office technology wasn't cool, I was doing it, right? So I was always kind of the guy that got thrown into the fight to figure it out. So fast forward, it's been 36 years ago, about 30, well, I guess it's 30 years ago exactly. And I've had the luxury of working for the largest company in the world, General Electric, Union Pacific here in Omaha, Nebraska. Lots of service integrators, system integrators globally, and traveled for a long, long time, and ended up adopting 2 boys with my wife at a much more mature age than I think technically normally possible to do. And my wife said, here's the deal. If you're going to be a father, you're going to be home with me. So I brought me home, and I've been in Omaha for about 13 years now. So
awesome. Great. Thank you. So today you're the CIO of Trainer State Bank. And I know one of the challenges when you came in there, and you and I have had these conversations, was really, well, probably some of the challenges were systems, right? And data acquisition and having the foundation for that. Can you share a little bit about, like, when you started there, what you saw and really what went through your head? What was kind of some of the first things you thought as a CIO, I need to work on this? Yeah.
So it's actually TS Banking Group. So Trainer State Bank has been retired, that title, for a long time. But the TS Banking Group, we're a holding company with 3 different charters. We're in multiple states. We have 3 different brands in all 3 of those states. So which is an interesting challenge as well, just from a data perspective. But when I joined the banking group, one of the biggest challenges they gave me all my passwords on the spreadsheet and said, make sure you destroy that spreadsheet when you're done. I was like, this is not how I want this to be in the future. So it kind of immediately kind of reminded me that, hey, there's a lot of work to do. And I spent the first 90 days doing a real technical assessment. So didn't do any real big decision making. I was just about understanding and asking questions, trying to get my lay of the land. And I have a very, very specific format that I walk through that I've done multiple times in my career. My sister and my brother are both CIOs as well. So the 3 of us have kind of pooled our resources around how to kind of tackle this. So I had a really good assessment done after the first 90 days. I spent the next 90 days writing a 3-year strategy document. That's like, okay, here's where we are. Here's where we need to be. And here's where the competition is. So the first thing I noticed, honestly, was the disconnected systems. Microsoft Office was not installed in the cloud. We didn't have any cloud presence whatsoever. The only cloud application was Salesforce, and we couldn't stand Salesforce. From a usability perspective, it was consuming a lot of resources and wasn't generating revenue like the marketing says. So my first kind of instinct was like, okay, we have to upskill the entire team. And the team had never been in the cloud space. They are very good around the on-prem environment, but it's a different world. Mm-hmm. So I started forcing education, much to the chagrin of my team immediately. But I forced my leaders to spend 4 hours a week in training on my dime, off of property if I can. So I'd like them to literally log out of their regular working day and go to train. And then my front line, anyone else who's not leading people, 2 hours a week is an expectation. And I measured it very intensely at the beginning just to establish this is something I'm very serious about. It's now just part of the ecosystem. They just train. And then I went and found top resources. That's where you and I started talking about having that next level of support, because I was concerned that we were going into territory that we hadn't been into yet. And there is both joy in that adventure, but a lot of fear in that adventure. So having you and your team around us as a 3rd level support, like when we get into trouble, and we had a number of issues where you go, well, I'm not sure this is the right solution. I think we could fix it. We could do it, but let's get Steve and his team on the call to help us walk through the technical challenges. So
thank you. We definitely appreciate the partnership, and again, it's been fun to get to know you through this whole process. Yeah, I know one of the projects that you were working on was moving away from Salesforce, right? Yep. And implementing a different CRM, and you made the comment to me, there's a lot of things you wanted to do with your client data that just wasn't happening, and you knew in your mind as the CIO, we have great data. It may not be structured right. We may not be able to report on it correctly, but what were some of the things that you were hoping to get out of that data? What are initiatives, strategies that you wanted to use that data for?
Yeah, so probably not unlike most businesses that have grown really quickly, a number of disparate systems, right? So I have 3 bank charters, 3 customer masters in those banks, right? Then I've got a customer master with our financial planning group. I've got a customer master with our accounting group. I got a customer master with our payroll and accounting team. So I found that was the biggest issue, is getting to one standard view. And there wasn't a discipline around data hygiene when I came. So we didn't have, we had great SQL Server, right? SQL Server, I think 1.8 billion records of transactional history, right? Which is a lot of records for us to go back and look at, but wasn't being used kind of in a centralized way. We had the classic. We had 185 or 200 dashboards, of which 20 of them have been used in the last 6 months, 8 months, and a number of reports that the number of reports we had in our core systems were in the hundreds and hadn't been updated and used in many years, because someone will create a report and then life will go on and they'll move it to something else. So there's this kind of an overall need to look at how we're looking at data and data analytics. And it required, I had a move I wanted to make right away, but I knew that I wasn't ready to make the move because from a technical perspective and a skills perspective. So we've been over this period. Now we're in the third year, almost the third year, and we've actually got a director of data strategy. We've got a data engineer. I'm hiring a data scientist, and we're then upskilling the entire organization around dashboarding using Microsoft's Fabric platform, which Microsoft Fabric is their kind of data analysis as a service, and that'll give us a lot more opportunity for people who may not be data experts to look at models which are already created based upon the work we're doing in the back end.
Okay. Explain what you mean by data hygiene or lack of data hygiene.
Yeah. So people are quick to build reports for things that are broken, but they're not necessarily quick to go fix the thing that's broken. So if you think about I always look at a report as a defect in a process. If you create a report, there's something that your systems are not telling you somewhere else that you've got to go catch. And I understand dashboards are great, so I'm not in any way degrading dashboards of the visualization and the value of visualization. But the company got into kind of a habit of creating a report to see issues. Well, then the problem is you've got to have someone who watches that report. It's got to be updated all the time. If there's configurations, changes, you got to make sure it's updated. So data hygiene is, in my world, has been just like, who owns the data, who's responsible for keeping it updated, how often does it get updated, when do we destroy the data, all that kind of data loss and prevention stuff had been conversations that they'd had, but they didn't have a technical capability to do anything about it besides literally, selecting and deleting. So there was an on-premise environment, archaic infrastructure. It didn't allow much opportunity for highly leveraging technology.
Yeah. I see that as a need for any size business, whether it's a two-person business or 200 or 2,000, whatever. Data hygiene is important. Understanding, how it's structured, all those things, who owns it, when it gets updated, where it's stored, the structure. I have those conversations with a mutual friend of ours, Shudar, a lot about that. Yep. And even in my business, I think we're doing an okay job, and then we go to start reporting on it and realize that we have gaps, we have holes, and we have to do some cleanup. So it's important.
Yeah, it's actually, it's a product of growth, right? So it's not a bad problem to have. I'd rather have data hygiene issues versus no data issues, right? I'll take poor data that needs to be cleaned or maintained or managed over having no data every single day. But really, it's about kind of understanding that the data should be, you should be looking for insights out of your data, not just reports. And I argue with my team a lot. We debate that. Listen, if we're having to create a dashboard, there's something that's broken somewhere. Where's the process broken that the dashboard's required for us to go see that? If it's just reporting that we're succeeding or failing, I get that. But when you're putting dashboards together to find defects and exceptions, you sometimes just stop worrying about the problem that's creating the defect. So I really pushed on. So we're down to, I think, 25 dashboards for the entire organization, and we were at, almost 200 2.5 years ago. So, and I think it's probably 12 too many. I think we probably got 10 or 12 more that'll go away.
What are some of the things that you're able to do now that you weren't before you got there, or when you got there and you had what you had now today with a lot of these processes, these systems that you've implemented, training your team up, trying to merge these disparate systems, going to the cloud? Maybe an example or two of what you're able to do today that you couldn't do a year or two ago.
Yeah. It's so far-fetched. So I'll give you a perspective. We did strategic planning in 2018 before I was here at the TIS Banking Group. That strategic planning took us a full year of time. So, and it's a all in, everyone, all hands on deck. We do like workshops around where we've been, where we're going, this entire process of an organization. And then we would come back and then they would transcribe that every night. They listen to the recording, take notes to all those notes. Next day, kind of wrap it up. That process itself took us about 9-10 months to even get to a point where we are having a conversation about strategy. We've been able to do all of that work in about 35 days because of artificial intelligence, transcription of messages, the implementation of Miro, which was the first application I brought on board to the organization, which is a whiteboard sharing application. So it's just one where you take it, we have synthesized literally 150 people's perspectives and boil it down into a really good draft strategic plan for the next 5 years in a matter of weeks versus months. And then on top of that, being able to move quickly from, I keep arguing that artificial intelligence is all about getting to discernment faster. So it's when do I get free time to start thinking, right? So that's why I think that there's an interesting shift or interesting conversation around AI is that automation is great, but you still have to have, it's best if you use like a posse of smart people who get you to a position of making a decision faster and having the time to taking the time for good discernment. So we're now at a point where we've got the rest of the year to discern and boil down and pull out and debate the current strategy that we think we've got for the next 5 years. Unlike 2018, which they had 30 days to go from I got all the information to an executable plan in the future. And that's all from the new technology, new data, new processes, technically savvy implementer, the people I call it tech adjacent. So technology should always be very, very technical savvy. The tech adjacent is that next level of people who touch technology, process managers, product owners, that sort of thing. So all of that's been one major improvement for us as an organization. The second one I would just say is we had a question where, when the interest rates were going through the roof, right, the cost of capital, we would have people coming in, they're arguing over, I want to move my CD down the street for a percentage point, right? So a 24 or 12 month, whatever the CD is. And when you start doing the math, to move the amounts of money that they're moving it for $3.45 in total net new money. So we started giving this constant conversation, and within we had a question at 2:00 in the afternoon about could we write a quick calculator to articulate the message back to our clients. So between, it was like 1 or 2 o'clock, by 3:15 we had a functioning deployed application on the websites for all of our clients to be using and for our internal customers. And say, is it worth all of this? I mean, it's going to take us, I'll just buy a cup of coffee instead of moving the money. And that helped us keep a lot of the capital creep, if you will, to other organizations during that period of time. And that was done AI, Teams, a new platform, M365, Azure, all of those kind of tools that we brought on board that we would have never even been close to capable 2 years ago.
Yep. One of the things that I'm really curious to your perspective is, you talked about disparate systems, you talked about moving into the cloud. I have those conversations still to this day with the smaller, medium-sized businesses that they still have on-prem servers and they want to go to the cloud, and it's still kind of scary for them. But it'd be interesting for me to better understand, like, what does the cloud offer that on-prem doesn't in terms of, I guess, data storage, but even data structure and how you can leverage it?
A great question, Steve. So I don't think it's even in the same ballpark. I understand that you can certainly spend enough on the prem to build out yourself a really good private cloud. Mm-hmm. But for most medium to small businesses, that's pretty cost prohibitive to do that. Mm-hmm. We have had very good luck, and my team has been very talented around the on-prem environment. But we are basically, all of our working applications are off of on-prem now. We're in the cloud, except our banking core, which is pretty typical for all banks. They're kind of stuck with a non-modern core, which I'm working on as well. But for me, it's about exposure to new tool sets and exposure to new processes. So we landed our first core data in Azure on January 29th. 10 a.m. we landed our first core data that never touched our premises. So never touched us. It just went right to Azure. And I think we had a hop, right? So it hit us, but didn't stop and store. We didn't do any, no transformation of the data in our environment. It went right into Azure. So that gives us brand new tool sets. I can go, I'd say play, but I can have my data scientist team now run algorithms in an environment where I can just deploy them quickly. And I get it. All of that's probably, all is doable on-prem. You can buy edge devices and you can move Azure to your data center, and all those things are possible. But you'll never be able to keep up with the scale of a cloud infrastructure. And that's where we are. So we decided strategically that was where we needed to be. The other part for my team is I owe them the best tool set to be the most effective. And if I'm, the perfect example is my development team, and we don't do software like custom code for our application. We do a lot of custom integrations, a lot of Azure functions, a lot of back-end movement of data and movement of processes. But I always said, I'm just amazed at what they did before the cloud. It wasn't baling wire and duct tape, but it was pretty close to some duct tape and maybe some other type of wire. Because I was just like amazed that they got so much done in spite of the infrastructure. But I, as a leader, owe my team the very best tools to make them the most successful. And the only way I can do that, honestly, is to be in an environment where people are just as concerned about progress as I am.
Yeah. That's a great point too, because, and that's in any business. I look at that as a responsibility for me and my business, and we do owe it to our teams to give them the best tools. And that's, as a matter of fact, that's one of the questions I think it's on the Gallup Q12 and other employee engagement surveys. It says, do you have the tools and the resources needed to do your job and basically excel at it? And sometimes people will say, no, I don't. And then you dig into it and you find maybe not. Sometimes it's a lack of their understanding of the tools that are available and how to use them, but we still owe it to them. So that's the case for any size business. So investing in technology is absolutely essential, because if you want your people to be high performers, give them high performing tools and resources. Yeah,
I think it's twofold, Steve. I think it's so I had as a leader, what do you want to be remembered as a leader? And I was honored that one of my new employees said that if there's one thing I know about Julian in a kind of review, is that he expects me to train every week. He expects me to learn every week. He jokingly says it's just like being thrown off the deep end of the pool and swimming. And I do believe in that kind of philosophy, with the caveat you put a safety nets around you, right? So that's why we have a relationship with you. That's why we put them through a boot camp. That's why I spend money on Udemy for a course. All you can consume training. That's why I take it out of my time, our time as a banking group it's important. If I don't want to just say, go figure it out. I want to say, here's the tools, and here's the training, and here's the commitment to that. It's unfair to have someone go jump into a pool of deep water and then say, go figure this out on your own time, or you should have been smarter than you are. It's about making sure I, as a leader, are giving them the environment, the cover from a timing perspective, the expectations, and then the tool set. All of those sort of things have to work together, or you're kind of a jerk. my word.
Your
technical word.
Yeah. So we're talking about a lot of I would consider it not very technical speak, but to some of the audience that's watching this is probably thinking that's really technical stuff. But how do we boil it down for the founder, the owner, the CEO? How do we boil it down for them to say it's not as complex as it sounds, right? You talked about some really basic things. You talked about data hygiene, which is simply just understanding the basics around how your data is collected, who owns it, that sort of thing. Not everybody can afford a data scientist, right?
No.
But the data that the data that companies possess is their greatest asset. It's the most valuable asset is their data next to their, well, I could say next to their people or alongside their people. But if you don't have the data, I don't know how you can run a business. And I don't care if it's a bar and grill or a banking group like yours. You need to have data.
Yeah, and I think you asked where do you start. So my opinion is that I would start the CRM at the front door. You've got to have a decent CRM, customer relationship management system, and it doesn't have to be very expensive. There are some really easy out of the box SaaS offerings which don't cost you an arm and a leg. There's one I have no connection to these, but One Page CRM, which is an incredible European-based CRM. It's kind of much like a to-do list. Kind of, I think whenever I advised a company, it was like I think $30 a month for like 300 people. It's just really inexpensive. So it's like you don't have to go buy a $250,000 a year software system, but getting the data and making sure that you are, as a owner or as a leader, as concerned about what's going in that information and how it's coming out of it that's important. If you don't care about it, they won't care about it. Right. Period. And then if you're small, it's great because you can start small CRM, small ERP, maybe a pay, like a QuickBooks for accounting in the back end. The challenging part is that growth when you hit the kind of start moving up. Do you invest the time? And I would always recommend that you visit with someone who understands the data landscape. Doesn't have to be a data scientist, doesn't have to be like a data engineer. It's just like, okay, who do I know in my world that says I understand how to put the data piece together, the data piece. I would actually start looking, I would like using AI. I'd be looking at say, here's where I am, this is where I am in my journey. Here's the data sets I've currently got. I am expanding into these 3 markets. What kind of data elements should I be considering? What elements should I collect? What might be good for the future? I'm still doing that for the bank. I constantly are asking our co-pilot advice around what kind of information should I continue to ask for, think about, and synthesize based upon current information.
That's good stuff. One of the things I teach my leaders, and even just in general my team, and I'm sure you probably have a similar message, is people come to me and they say, Steve, how do I grow? How do I get to that next position, next level? And I've even had like sitting in interviews and people say, so if I come on board, what's going to make me successful? And I usually throw out 2 words. You got to be curious and you got to care, right? You got to give a shit. And if you find people in your organization, no matter your size, that are curious and care, those are the type of people I think you can then lean on to learn these systems, right? So as you start to scale, or you start to grow, you can scale with the growth, your people can. And in your case, you emphasize education. And as a small business owner, and I agree, these SaaS offerings now, they're pretty basic, they're easy to learn, but somebody needs to be curious enough to learn them and to care, right?
Yep.
And so
you sound like my presentation on Wednesday. I think there's only one. I think the commodity that's most valuable for anyone in the future is curiosity. The care part's an interesting one because it's a two-way street, right? In an organization, does the organization care about you? Do you care about them? But do you care about being the best you can be every day? Do you show up and bring your best to bear? For me, curiosity is the golden ticket for growth. It is a defining difference for me in my career that whenever I was told, go back and sit down and fill out the spreadsheet, there's 16 of us doing that same work. So you can imagine the cost of the organization. Three shifts, divisions, 3 shifts. So there's a lot of people doing this spreadsheet. And the bad news, no one asked if the spreadsheet was accurate, right? Because every 4 hours, the railroad continues to move. So trains move. So when I looked at it, you'd fill out where the train was, but then 4 hours later, that train is already in North Platte, Nebraska, but I would still show it at Omaha, Nebraska. And it's like, I made the statement, there's better to have no data than have bad data, right? I'd rather, if I'm going to be walking on the tightrope, then don't give me the illusion that I've got something underneath me, right? Let me know I'm walking on the tightrope. But it was the defining difference in my career at that location at that moment to say, I think I can solve this problem. And, no computer science course in school. Lotus 1-2-3, which dates me. I don't think it's even a tool anymore. It was the only class I took. I loved it. I was like, this is computers. So there's got to be more to the life than this. But I look back now and, I've been forced to learn multiple software platforms. I've been forced to learn multiple software languages because I've led teams in COBOL, DB2, CICS, vSAM, you name all the old ones, and then Java, .NET. So all these spaces I kind of got thrown into because I was curious. So I won't show you my bookshelf over here, but it's all the old books that I've bought. Which my wife goes, "Why do you keep them?" I says, "Those are those are my merit badges. Like I'm a scout, right? Here's my DDS book.
Yeah, it's what's part of your legacy, right? Your boys are gonna go in that office in 50 years and go, "That's Dad's legacy right there." That's cool.
Yeah.
Well, Julian, this has been a lot of fun talking to you. I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Steve. I'm excited about your podcast. I think that entrepreneurs, I think data and artificial intelligence is the biggest game changer in that space. In my career, I'm blown away. I keep jokingly telling it some of it's magic, and I know it's not, but some of it feels like magic. It's so amazing. So thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thanks. If you want to learn more about making data-driven decisions in your business, click the link in the show notes now so you can take advantage of this free information.